Travel is the only thing you buy that makes you feel richer. Welcome to the Retirement Answer Man Show. My name is Roger Whitney. I am your host, and this is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement. We are here to help you rock retirement. And in the month of December, for the entire month, we're going to be talking about travel in retirement. Now, why would we do that? Well, number one, it's December. We're all planning or dialing in our plans for travel next year. I know I am. But we also just completed the annual Retirement Answer Man Show survey and had hundreds of responses. I was blown away from people like you telling us a little bit about yourself, what you like about the show, what you would like us to improve on the show, and also what you're worried about in retirement and what you're most excited about in retirement. And number two on the most excited about retirement list was travel. 78% of survey responders said that they were most excited about traveling in retirement. Now, it was number two, just behind time freedom. And I think they sort of go hand in hand. So travel, for a lot of us, is an important thing we want to do in retirement. Most people, you would ask, I ask my kids, they're in their 20s, that's what they say they want to do. They just don't have the time and the money. And often we don't feel like we have the time and the money. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So this entire month, we're going to talk about travel. And we are going to start today with how do you create a vision to be intentional with your time and how you spend it traveling. Now, before we get going with the show, we're making some changes. There's changes happening around here on the Retirement Answer Man Show, much of it in response to you and the feedback that you've given us. So we're going to start answering listener questions every show starting next week. And so if you have a question, you can go to rogerwhitney.com/Ask Roger, and you can email us a question. But what I would really prefer is if you left a quick voicemail or quick recording of your question so we can hear your awesome voice. And we'll try to answer questions each week so we can really be the Retirement Answer Man. So Paige had a decision to make. Paige and her husband were in their late 40s, and she was an executive pretty high up in a public company, and she had built a stellar career. And her husband had been diligent savers and have amassed a high 7-figure net worth. Not bad, hey? And it was clear that she had had enough of the rat race, at least for a while. She wasn't planning on leaving work permanently, but she needed a year or two sabbatical, as she called it. And so she had informed her boss, the CEO, that she was going to resign to take this year and a half sabbatical and then either approach him again or look for a position at another company. She had confidence that she could do this, leave a very well-paying job where she was respected and find another job later on. And her planned date was November 1st. About a month before that planned date, she realized that the company had done really well, and stock options that she had been granted that she hadn't really paid much attention to were now worth in the low 7 figures. But they only vested if she stayed until March 1st. 4 months after her planned sabbatical on November 1st, she had a dilemma. The money wasn't going to alter the course of her life per se. They had done very well, and they felt confident they were fairly financially independent. But still, 7 figures. How do you pass that up? What would you do? We focus so much on the resource of money, but is that really the most precious resource? What about time? Time is, I think, by far the most precious resource, yet it's the one that we waste maybe the most. I was reading an old book by Peter Drucker called The Effective Executive. And he talked about time as the most precious resource. And it's one that we take for granted. We always feel like we have an endless supply of time until we get sick, until someone around us passes away, or something brings front and center the scarcity of time, really. The younger we are, the more we feel time is infinite. And the older we get, we start to realize it's not. But it is the precious resource. Let's think about this. This is some of the things Mr. Drucker pointed out. The supply of time is inelastic. So what that means is that no matter how high the demand is for time, the supply stays the same. You got what you got. Every day, you're closer to death than you've ever been before. Time is perishable. It gets wasted. It's going to go bad and be lost forever. It can't be stored. You can't really store time anywhere. You can't rent it. You can't buy it. I mean, sure, there are ways to get time back by paying someone to mow your lawn or to watch the house and so forth, but you can't rent and buy more time, no matter how much you want it. And everything requires time. Think of that from a manufacturing or economic perspective. Money is plentiful. Time is not. So when we think about time, you can put time into two categories, and this is how I tend to look at it. You can either be spending time, investing time, you could say, intentionally, or you could be passing time. So think of watching TV, playing a video game, surfing the internet, being on social media, walking around a mall aimlessly. That could be categorized as passing time. You're just wasting it. Or you could be spending time intentionally. You could intentionally be going to the mall. You could be intentionally taking some downtime to play a game for a period of time. You could make a decision on how you're going to spend your time. It doesn't mean that every minute of the day has to be spending time intentionally. It doesn't mean that passing time is bad per se. But I think it's important to understand those distinctions of how you decide to spend it or pass it. I look back and I can think of countless hours of me just passing time searching for distractions, especially when I was younger. So time, and this relates to travel, because we all say we love travel, but oftentimes we don't feel like we have the time or the money. Now let's go back to Paige. So she's sitting there in October. They've already been walking down this road of her taking a sabbatical. They know they're fairly financially independent. We never really feel that way, but they have, they're pretty sharp. And she realizes, I could stay 4 more months, just 4 more months, and have another $1 million or $2 million from these vested options. But we had already planned these things to do with our family during the beginning part of our sabbatical. What did Paige do? Paige decided to stay on her timeline, leave November 1st, and forego over $1 million. This story is altered, but it's true. I walked this journey with them. They valued time more than money. Do you? In the practical planning segment today, we are going to start off this series on travel and retirement. And step 1 is figuring out what the heck it is you want to do. What is the vision for you and travel? It's probably a good idea to have some idea of the types of things you enjoy and that you don't enjoy, and maybe that your spouse enjoys and doesn't enjoy. At this stage in life, you should already have enough experience where you got an idea, right? You may not have thought about it intentionally, but you have an idea, just like you know what kind of food you like. So when you're sitting here, let's say you are retired and you're preparing to travel, or you are on the approach to the runway towards retirement. Now's the time to really start thinking creatively about what it is you want to do so you can spend your time and your money to create the kind of rich life that you want. So obviously you can brainstorm places and just start thinking where you've gone before or what you might like to go. But I want to start to put together a framework on this vision idea so you can do this intentionally and maybe come up with some better solutions that you might have just winging it. I was having a conversation with a couple who is traveling in an RV across the country. Hey guys, if you're listening. And prior to retirement, they approached this whole thing like a project management exercise. And they had this huge vision board, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I was talking to them the other day, and they were like, Roger, we got to get back. We don't have a place for our vision board in the RV now that we're bouncing all over the country. So we need to get one again because we don't want to miss out on things that we wanted to do, but we never really counted because we didn't stop and look forward a little bit. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to sit here, whether you're retired already or you're getting ready for retirement, and look forward to the kind of travel that you think you might want to do so you can start to frame this in. And later on this month, we'll talk about counting the cost and all those other things. So there are two main categories of travel. There is the normal annual travel that you're going to do year in and year out. Maybe it's going to see relatives. I have a client or two that do a quarterly travel where they always go to, usually it's a Marriott resort, someplace around the country, and just use it as a retreat to get away from normal life to recoup. And they just do that on a quarterly basis. And then you're going to have the extraordinary or bucket list travel. Like I went to Mongolia last year. That wasn't really on my bucket list, but it was an adventure out of the ordinary type of trip. And next year, God willing, I'll be going to, where am I going? Madagascar. That's right. Going to Madagascar, hopefully. That's an extraordinary kind of trip, well beyond what my wife and I do on a normal basis. So you have those two categories. So I would think in your vision of what's normal trips that you want to make sure you're doing in a certain sequence. And then what are some of those bucket list types of places? And then the next thing you want to consider is the timing. Are you going to wait until you're retired to go do these things? I would say don't do that. Make the time. Or are you going to wait until you're retired? And if it's retirement, and this falls in, we talked about this before, the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. When someone's thinking about travel or life in general, they generally, in their minds, are thinking about travel while they're as healthy as they are now. And we don't spend consciously time thinking about, oh, and I can't travel anymore unless we're around somebody and we say, oh, we're going to be like that someday. So when you're thinking about travel, just like with the normal spending needs that we've talked about, divide that into go-go years, slow-go years, no-go years. Think about, okay, what do I want to do early in retirement when I feel I can still do it? If you want to go to Machu Picchu and climb up the mountain or down the mountain, I don't know, I've never been there, but if you want to go there and climb that or go to Kilimanjaro and hike up that, well, you probably want to do that early. Get that sucker in. Whereas if you want to go chill in Paris, you can maybe do that later in life if you're not, walking too much and you got the buses and transportation. So you want to organize your travel as you think about this stuff in the go-go, slow-go mindset so you don't miss out on something because suddenly you can't do it because physically you're unable. And then also when you're thinking about timing, think about frequency. A lot of times when I see people set travel budgets, they're just saying, okay, I want to spend X amount on an annual basis. That's okay to do as a placeholder. But as you get closer, you can dial things in. You can have the normal annual travel, have that be an annual budget. And then you can say every 3 years, I'm spending this extraordinary amount to take all of the kids and the grandkids to one place. So it doesn't have to be annual. It doesn't have to be every other year. It could be every 3 years for only 4 times. So you can think about the frequency of these things because as you get this more dialed in, that's going to matter when we figure out whether you can afford it or not, right? Define the what before the where. Because usually when we think about travel, we're thinking about where do I want to go next? And that's okay. But this is a time to slow down, be intentional, and start to frame, given your vast experience on this world, decades, I would imagine, what it is you really enjoy and what you don't. For example, do you like the sun, the snow, a combination? Do you like the winter, the fall, the springtime? I'm a summer, fall, spring kind of guy. I'm not a winter kind of guy. I don't want to go to Colorado in the winter. Don't want to do it. So I know that about myself. Are you an urban kind of person? You want to go live in downtown New York or go visit downtown New York and go through the hustle and bustle? Or would that just drive you utterly insane? Probably good to know that about yourself. Maybe you like suburban. Maybe you like rural, country. Maybe you like remote. When I'm backpacking, I like to not see people. I like to be on the trail or be on the water and not really bump into anybody. That makes me feel remote. I enjoy that. Not for every trip, but you want to define what you want and think about that because you probably like one more than the other. From an itinerary standpoint, do you like to have an itinerary where you know exactly what you're doing at every stop and you have it planned out? Some people operate that way and they're very comforted. That's just who they are. And it makes them feel more in control and they enjoy their trips more. On the other end, you have nomadic people who just want to go, show up and figure it out as they go along. I got 10 days. I'm in Europe. I'll start at point A and where point B, C, D, E, F, G are, I have no idea. Some people are very comfortable with that. The itinerary folks might go batty. My brother-in-law is an itinerary guy. I'm in between. I'm an unguided. I like a loose itinerary. I actually like to pair with someone who loves to do itineraries, and I just show up and be present. You could call that lazy. I don't think it's lazy. We both get what we want, but it's important to know what kind of structure you want around the trips that you go on. Maybe you want them to be guided. Maybe you are comfortable going on a guided trip to Europe or to Mongolia. When we were in Mongolia, Rajiv and I saw a lot of tours where 20 people would be on buses. They'd come off, get off, and they had an itinerary that was guided and they had people around them, keeping them safe and moving them about the whole time. They were comfortable with that. It fit them. Interestingly, there was this huge bird watching group from Boston. We were not in the Gobi Desert. We were in the old capital of Mongolia. I forget the name. Anyway, there was like 30 of them. They were all 70 plus. Very impressive. The guided and the structured fit them, especially at their ages, right? And then you can have a framework. There are self-guided tours. I know someone that followed an itinerary for the Band of Brothers in Europe. They didn't do the guided tour, but they followed the itinerary, but did it on their own. And then there's just nomadic. You just go out and about. Then you want to figure out, okay, when I go someplace, do I want leisure? Do I want to be sitting on a sandals beach at an all-inclusive resort, having Mai Tais brought to me and sunning myself? Or do I want activity? Do I want to be doing things? Or do I want adventure? Again, Mongolia. Riding the Bactrim camel, the only two-humped camel, excuse me. Anyway, do you want leisure, activity, or adventure? I love the adventure. My wife loves the leisure. You're going to have to reconcile that if you are married. I go on my adventure trips with friends and she's cool with that. And she goes on some leisure trips with her friends and we do a bit of both together. Do you want to go with family, to family, without family? Now, personally, I wouldn't count travel in the way I'm thinking of it as going to visit for holidays someone. Yes, that's traveling, going somewhere. A lot of times we do it out of obligation. A lot of times we do it because we enjoy the family. Personally, I think of travel differently than that. I think of travel as exploration in some way. My wife and I were planning a trip here for June for our 30th wedding anniversary, and we are going with a high school buddy of mine and his wife. Everybody gets along really, really well, and we travel really, really well together. They come down and visit us. We go visit them. We typically do the 5s together. So we did the 25th together. It was their 20th, our 25th, and now it's their 25th and our 30th. And we travel really well together because my buddy Eric, he likes activities. I love activities. Shauna loves leisure and sightseeing, and Chris, Eric's wife, loves leisure and sightseeing, and Eric and I like those too, but we can't just lay around on the beach too long. So it's nice to be paired up, and it enhances the experience for everybody. Do you want an intellectual trip, a physical trip, a grueling trip? A little bit of both. Do you want first class? Do you want coach? Do you want hitchhiking? make lists of all these things and rate what you want in each one of these categories, because that will help you in the next stage, which is, okay, where do you want to go? What fits this profile that you've created for yourself? Now, if you are married, my suggestion would be is take these items and do them separately. Not even at the same table. Go off to your own areas, come back in a week or so, and then swap, compare notes, and then reconcile them together. Because you want to make sure that both of your voices are heard, and we don't want where the planner is the one that plans everything and the one that's not the planner isn't the one that speaks up. We want to make sure there's some reconciliation so everybody gets a little bit of what they want. And these kind of trips can be together. Let's say your spouse loves to go, I don't know, to huge antique flea markets. And you don't mind it, but it's not like your thrill. It can be fun. It wouldn't be something you would choose. So you have a decision to make. One is, do you give them space to be able to go do this with people that enjoy that too? Or do you go and appreciate the joy they're getting out of it and get joy out of that because they love having you with them? That's important. Both of those are good solutions. And then also look for, and this is similar, related to travel, but it's something my wife and I have been doing recently, so I'll talk about it, is if you can find activities that you love to do and create travel around those activities. For me, I love to cycle. I love cycling, so I will plan activities around cycling. I'll go do a race in Moab, and then I get to go see Moab, and I get to do a race. I did one in Davis, California. I always did my triathlons in different cities. Lately, my wife and I, so we used to, when we were in college, we used to golf. That was one of the things that we did as an activity. And then we sort of got away from it. I hadn't golfed in years. And now that her arthritis is managed, about 4 months ago, we started golfing again. And so we go once a week. I thought I had given up golf forever, wasn't really into it. And now once a week, we go golfing and we really enjoy it. We're competitive. We're right around each other. She beats me. I beat her. I'm much more mature than I was as a younger golfer. I don't get near as upset. I am actually still able to enjoy the day when I shank it into the woods. And so we're going to use this as a way to do travel around an activity we enjoy and explore different parts of the country while enjoying an activity where we get to spend 4, 5, 6 hours without TVs, without phones, without distractions, other than yelling at the ball and asking why it did that when it shouldn't have. So think about activities, whether you're single or especially if you're a couple, that you can do together with people that you enjoy. So that's the framework that I want you to start to think about in going through creating this vision. Now, some tools you can use. Number one is, and I mentioned it, I think a week or two ago, is the New Year calendar, the wall calendar, NEU year.net is the website. They have a number of different calendars. I happen to have the 6-foot big one on my wall. And the first thing I've done, and I think I mentioned this already on a previous episode, is I have all of my travel blocked out on that calendar already. And I like it as a visual cue that I see every day, so I can always fit things around what I've already had planned. Another tool that you can use is something called a mind map. So Google mind mapping. You can do it on paper. There are software. I use MindNode. And usually I use mind mapping when I'm in the brainstorming stage, because it's a great way of organizing and just throwing out a lot of random things. So you could take each one of the attributes of a vision for travel that I talked about and make it an arm of the mind map and just riff off of that arm, say what kind of weather you like, and just riff off of that arm. So you can look at MindNode. If you Google mind mapping, we'll try to find a video. Maybe we can put in 6 Shot Saturday for you. But mind mapping is a really good thing to do in this stage because it lets you just throw it out there and it's not like writing sentences. And then the last thing you can do is create a vision board. Now, I've never done this, but I've had clients that have done this. And it's a great way of putting visuals. You like sun? Put a picture of a sun up there. You want to go to Machu Picchu? Did I? Yeah, I was trying to remember if I said that incorrectly the first time. I probably did. Anyway, if you like Machu Picchu, put a picture up there, and you can throw pictures and visualize all the things that you like and that you don't like, and then you can start to organize it on a big board, and you want to put it someplace in the kitchen, in the living room where you see it. And that, just simply being there with all those visuals, can really help prompt discussions and help you be more intentional about spending your time. So that is a good first step in addressing travel in retirement. Now, next week, we are going to talk about creating the budget for what these trips might cost as we talk about travel and retirement this month on the Retirement Answer Man Show. So this week I got an email from a listener about tax management in retirement saying that we didn't talk enough about Roth conversions as part of a tax planning strategy. And I was like baffled. I'm like, really? We didn't? And I recalled we had a number of in-depth meetups inside the Rock Retirement Club where we analyzed the Roth conversion decision with case studies and being able to share screens and show it, and had a lot of discussion with people that are doing it, people that are considering doing it. And I guess I thought I did that on the show. So we're going to answer her question in a public format on the show here in a couple weeks. So stay tuned for that, miss. But the point is, if you're looking for in-depth illustrations, case studies, and discussions about topics we talk about, that is part of what the Rock Retirement Club is, where you can walk with wise people and become wise and get world-class education on how to do retirement right. So you can check that out at rockretirementclub.com. Now let's go set a smart sprint.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day goal to take a baby step to live a better life. So this month, I bet you can guess what it is. I challenge you in the next 7 days, grab a calendar, grab a journal, and choose a method of mind mapping, vision board, but start asking yourself the questions on all the different things that you want from a profile standpoint to do in retirement. Don't focus on places, focus on the profile of the things you enjoy, and that will get you moving in the right direction to spending time wisely on retirement travel. Now, remember, this is all helpful hints and education. Make sure you talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor before you make any changes to your life. That's just common sense. I hope you have a wonderful day.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.